All right, let's get right into it. We are talking about a truly incredible story, one of pure engineering genius and, honestly, just sheer persistence. We're going to break down Blue Origin's second ever flight of its absolute beast of a rocket, the New Glenn. And believe me, this mission ended with something pretty spectacular, one of the wildest things we've seen in modern spaceflight.
I mean, think about that for a second. How do you land a building, a 20-story building, on a tiny boat that's moving around in the middle of the ocean? It sounds like a brain teaser, right? But that's not a riddle. That's the actual engineering problem that Blue Origin just cracked. And that's exactly what makes this whole thing so groundbreaking. So, yeah, the big question is, how in the world did they pull it off? Let's get into it.
Okay, so to really get this, we've got to start at the end. I know, a little unconventional, but the grand finale is just too good. We're talking about the most dramatic, nail-biting part of the entire mission, bringing that huge first-stage booster all the way back home, safe and sound.
You know, the complexity here is just mind-boggling. Seriously, picture a skyscraper falling from the very edge of space, and your job is to, well, catch it. To do that, Blue Origin had to fire up 3 of its massive BE-4 engines again to slam on the brakes. Then, at just the right second, pop out 6 landing legs for stability, and then they had to gently, precisely touch it down. It's like a high-speed ballet, but with fire and steel. Absolutely incredible.
And this is what it all led to, a perfect landing. Now, you got to remember, their first attempt on the first flight, it didn't quite work out. But this time, the booster, which has the perfect nickname, by the way, never tell me the odds, absolutely nailed it, right on the deck of the drone ship Jacklyn. And a little fun fact for you, the ship is named after Jeff Bezos' mom. For Blue Origin, this was a huge, monumental first.
And you don't have to take my word for it. The company's CEO, Dave Limp, he put it perfectly. He said, "Never before in history has a booster this large nailed the landing on the second try." So think about that. This isn't just a win for Blue Origin. This is a big moment for rocketry, period. To land a beast this big and to get it right on your second try, well, that's one heck of a statement.
All right, so now that we've seen that amazing ending, let's hit rewind. Let's go back and look at the actual mission. I mean, what was this giant rocket even doing up there in the first place?
Okay, so here are the key facts. This was mission NG-2, only the second flight ever for New Glenn. But here's the really big deal. It was its first mission for a paying customer. This wasn't just a test anymore. It launched from Cape Canaveral on November 13th, and this flight basically marked Blue Origin's official debut in the big leagues of the heavy-lift rocket business. But man, getting this thing off the ground was a whole saga in itself. It really shows you how persistent you have to be. Their first try on November 9th? Nope, scrubbed. Bad weather. Then they try again on the 12th. What happens? A massive solar storm postpones it. Can you believe that? Space weather getting in the way of a space launch? But finally, on the 13th, they got their window and threaded the needle. Liftoff.
And this wasn't just about showing they could land the booster, as cool as that is. Nope. This rocket was carrying something really important. Some precious cargo, you might say. It was a critical science mission for NASA, and its destination was Mars.
So, what was in the box? It was NASA's ESCAPADE mission. It's actually a pair of twin satellites, and their job is to go into orbit around Mars and study its magnetosphere. Basically, scientists are trying to figure out how the solar wind from the sun has been stripping away the Martian atmosphere for billions of years. And that's a super important question, especially if we ever want to send people there.
And get this launch is just the very, very beginning of a long road trip. These satellites, they won't even get to Mars until September of 2027. And the real science mission doesn't even kick off until June 2028. It's just a wild reminder of how much long-term planning goes into these deep space missions. It's a multi-year game of patience.
And, the folks at the top were definitely paying attention. NASA's acting administrator Sean Duffy basically said, this mission is a huge milestone. He tied it directly to the national promise for America to lead in space exploration. So yeah, this launch was a big deal politically, too.
All right, let's zoom out for a second. Get the bigger picture. A success like this doesn't just happen in a bubble. What this really does is throw Blue Origin right into the center of a super competitive, brand new space race. And this time, it's commercial.
And when we talk about this race, we're talking about 2 heavyweights. In one corner, you've got Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin with the New Glenn sending out a massive 322 feet.
And in the other corner, you've got Elon Musk and SpaceX with the even bigger Starship at around 400 feet. Now, Starship is aiming for everything to be reusable, but New Glenn's focus on perfecting that reusable first stage makes it a very real, very powerful competitor right now.
But let's be real here and add some important context. SpaceX pretty much wrote the book on landing rocket boosters. They've been doing this routinely for years. It's almost old news for them. Blue Origin, on the other hand, just pulled off its first successful booster landing. So while this is an absolutely massive achievement for Blue Origin, they are just now stepping into an arena that SpaceX has really owned for a long time.
So you might be thinking, okay, I get it. They landed a rocket on a boat. Why is everyone making such a big deal about this? Why does this one single achievement matter so much? Well, it all boils down to one word: reusability. And that changes the entire economic game.
And the whole strategy, the entire reason for doing this, can be summed up with one number. Just one. And that number is 25. That single number is the core of everything Blue Origin is trying to do, and it's what could literally change everything about how we get to space.
So what's so special about 25? Well, here's what it means. Each New Glenn booster is designed to be flown at least 25 times. For decades, rockets have been a one-and-done deal. Imagine if every time a 747 landed, they just threw the plane away and built a new one for the next flight. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's how we've been doing spaceflight. By reusing that first stage, which is the most expensive part, you flip the whole script. Flying it 25 times means it's not a disposable piece of hardware anymore. It's a vehicle, and that makes the cost of getting to space plummet.
So now that they've proven they can do this, the door is wide open. Now Blue Origin can actually start executing their big business plan. What does that look like? Well, for starters, they can launch way more often. They can start rolling out Amazon's massive Project Kuiper's satellite internet system. They can take on more paying customers, including more missions for NASA. And, maybe most exciting, this positions New Glenn to be a key player in future missions, maybe even taking us back to the moon.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. Just think about this for a second. All of this historic landing, this was on their second flight. It kind of makes you wonder, right? If this is what's possible on flight number 2, what are we going to be seeing by the time they get to flight number 22? The speed of innovation right now is just mind-blowing, and you can be sure of one thing. The future of space is about to get way more interesting.